Good morning. I tried to record this once and it shut off on me for some reason. But anyway, hi, my name is Teresa, and I'm sorry it's been a minute since I posted. I had to get some things straightened out. I am packing for a move and doing some things that I need to do before I move and trying to get everything together. It's I don't have dates on anything. I operate on God's time, not mine. Um, anyway, I was telling you about why I was going to do a segment on moral codes and why it is important. To me, it's important because that's just how I live. I live by moral standards. I'm old school. I believe in myself. Um, I am very confident. I am authentic. My word is my bond. I'm very much a type of person that if you tell me something you told me, I'm not telling somebody else what you told me. It doesn't matter to anybody else what's going on in your life, and if they want to know, they can go ask you yourself. So I try to hold to that moral standard very tightly. I don't talk about people. It's not my place. If you told me, you told me. It stays right here. Um, God, I work for God. I have most of my life. He hid me in places that you wouldn't believe. And I've been through some things that people should never go through. But my moral code is something I hold myself to. It's not about you. It's not about somebody else. It is about me. And it is about, if you set a standard for me, mine's already higher than yours. I'll meet yours easily because yours will never be as high as mine. Never. I had a situation at work before I got fired, a few months before that, where a price had dropped and the item had dropped to 2 cents, which when it drops to 2 cents, everybody in the store knows that that is now trash and you cannot sell it. And people at the cash registers were going and getting this product off the shelf because it was like a $250 to $400 product in the electronics, and they were having people come and buy them for themselves. And I told my boss that it was happening, and everybody gets a little slap on the hand, and I talked to about, you're not supposed to do that. But I found 2 of them. I threw them in the trash where they were supposed to go. That was my job, to make sure that that happened, and I did what I could. Now, the other 2 products that did get sold, I have no authority over that. But somebody came and talked to me after it happened, one of the people involved, because I told them, I said, yes, I said, you cannot sell a 2-cent item. It is not sellable, and it will come up on the report that you sold it. So that's at your own risk. I can't tell you not to do something, but my moral code is something that you couldn't live up to. So the standards that I put in place for myself will far exceed anything that I expect out of you or anybody else, because nobody is authentic like me. Well, there may be a few people that are authentic like me, but there just really aren't very many. That's just not a value that people wrap themselves around anymore. But me, it's always been a standard for me. I don't lie. I tell the truth when you ask me something, and I don't care if you ask me about yourself. if you want me to lie to you, you need to say that to begin with, that you don't really want my opinion, you want somebody to agree with you. And I will comply with you if that's what you truly want. Because I had friends that knew I was going to tell them the truth, and they said, no, we want you to lie to us. Okay. Is it going to make you feel better if I lie to you? It doesn't make me feel better if you lie to me, and I still want that realness, and I expect that for me, you know. So there's that about my moral compass. God truly loves me for my authenticity and my truism. A truth is a truth no matter how you say it. A lie is a lie no matter how you say it. So I don't do things to make people feel good. Unless I bake. I might offer you a cookie and that'll make you feel good. Because I do a lot of baking. And I give it away. I don't bake for me. I bake for something to do sometimes. And I've been without an income for the last 7 months. So yeah, I baked some cookies and stuff. A cheesecake or something that my grandkids like. So I go and take stuff to my grandkids now instead of to work. I used to just give stuff out all the time. I baked lasagna. I used to sell lasagna at the job I had. I'd make it and sell it for $30 a pan, and it's homemade. It's a full pan. It's not like what you buy at the store. It is not Stouffer's frozen lasagna. It is my own personal recipe, and I make that for people when they request it. And sometimes I make some for myself too. But anyway, so I'm going to be telling my story in depth at some point in this. And I might tell a little bit, and I may go back in time some, because I'm got a lot of story to tell. My story first starts like when I was born. But I don't know if I'm going to start there because I don't remember any of this from before the age of 4. I still do not have all of my memory back. My parents, my family, somebody did something to make me forget who I was when I was a kid, because I am somebody that people would hunt down back in those days and kill them, and they didn't want me to get killed. So they made me forget because they saw my little light, and although I was just a little kid, they saw that and they didn't want people coming after me. So they did something to me to make me hide my light. My light did not start shining again until this past January. The last job I had, and we're going to just tell that story for right now. I went through hell on that job. People constantly trying to humble me. I am probably one of the most humble people you will ever meet, because I don't toot my own horn. Okay, you gave me an award. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. She deserves an award too, because I've seen her do exactly what I've done before. So, although I am happy that somebody realized I did something good, but there's other people that do good too, and they deserve some recognition themselves. And I'm not opposed to recognizing people. I do that all the time. So I've been unemployed since January. And I had some money in the bank, and I had some stocks and stocks. And I sold all that because it was in the employer that I had at the time. And I didn't want any ties left between me and them, because God removed me from there. I wouldn't have quit. God removed me. And that's a truism there. They think they fired me, and they did. They did. They terminated my employment for something really petty because they couldn't stand my light. I really traumatized their demons just by being around them because my light is very powerful. I don't know if anybody else sees my light. I cannot see it myself, but I hear people say, if you could only see it yourself, you would understand why people are intimidated by you. I can't see it. So I never knew why people were intimidated by me. But I know now. And that's okay, because God made me the way I am, and I have no intention of changing that for anyone. I want to show you all my plants. This is my plant room. I love plants. I grow them. I start them. I have I've got plants outside too. And I just stay in this little apartment. So I gave them one of my 2 bedrooms. And they do very well in here. I have a plant light for them, and I just take care of them. And me. And I also have 4 children of my own. I have 16 grandkids and 3 great-grandkids. I have one grandkid that I go get all the time. She's 2 years old. She's the only one that really wants to be around me all the time. We go to the park, we go shopping, we go places just so we can get out of the house and just something to do. And I spend 2 days a week with her, and I enjoy that. And she enjoys. She's always ready to go when I go get her. She's like standing at the garage door waiting on me to and sometimes her mommy's standing there with her most of the time, but they're just ready and waiting for me to come, and I show up. They know I will. Anyway, back to my story. I worked for one of the, how can I say this without saying the name? One of the leading indoor lumber yards. There we go. And flower centers. And I know they're nationwide in the USA. I believe there are stores of theirs in other countries too. I'm not positive. Don't hold me to that. I didn't tell you the name anyway. But my first year there was okay. After that, they gave me a boss that hated me, and every day he told me he was going to fire me. Every day he threatened my job. And I ended up getting hurt on his watch because we were moving beams for top stock, because I worked in the setting bays department where we tore it out and put all new in, and that was my job, part of it. The other part was recovering bays and cleaning them up, making them shoppable, and pricing. I did a lot of pricing in the store. I was good at my job. And then I got hurt. And the first offer came for $2,000. And I said, hell no, and hired me a lawyer. Anyway. I had 2 surgeries associated with that injury. And I don't know if you can tell, but this shoulder still sits lower than my other one. I'm working on it still myself because they refused me any more medical treatment. And so I ended up with 2 surgeries, one on my shoulder, 2 2 tears in my rotator cuff and a tear in the labrum, and my bicep was tore loose. And the other surgery, 2 tendons were tore loose in my forearm from my elbow. They never looked at my hand, my fingers. They wouldn't do anything for my back, and I have 2 herniated discs in my neck that they tried to tell me that it was because I was over 50 and I should have 2 herniated discs in my neck because I'm over 50. And I'm like, I haven't had any neck injuries. Why would I have had 2 herniated discs in my neck just because of my age? I mean, that's just, unless you have damage to it, you don't just come up with 2 herniated discs, especially not since a 8-foot 6-inch beam had been dangling from my fingertips because the other person dropped their end of the beam. I have no hostility towards that person. I'm just saying that the other person dropped her end of the beam, and I was on a 15 foot off the floor on a ladder, and so that 8-foot beam didn't hit the ground, and I couldn't let it go because it had already tore loose the 2 tendons in my forearm at that point, and tore my bicep loose and everything else. I still have a lot of pain, but I am an earth angel, and I alchemize that stuff, and I make myself more powerful with it. Now that I know I'm an earth angel, I know how I did that. So up until January, when I got fired, I really didn't understand that I was an earth angel. I had no knowledge of it. It wasn't something that I even thought about in my head because, like I said, I didn't have that knowledge. But anyway, I went through a lot at that employer. People didn't like me because I irritated their demons. People didn't like me because I wouldn't bow to them, because I stood up for myself, because I wouldn't let them walk on me and trample me. And I'm never going to do that. So if anybody ever gets the idea that they can walk on me and trample on me, go tread on somebody else. You can't tread on me. You can't. I won't allow it. So up until that injury, that one boss of mine was just constantly trying to fire me, constantly. Do this, do that. Write me up. So I never really got wrote up by that boss either. But I did get a phone call from the district guy before my first surgery, I believe it was. It might have been after my first surgery. I think it was after. And the district guy was calling me and my boss back to the office to have a conversation over the phone, and they told me I needed to update my portal and stuff, and nobody ever told me I needed to do any of that. It was about my injury. I turned paperwork into the office, and they turned it into HR, and then it was put in my file. Had nothing to do with me. But he got to yelling at me and cussing me and telling me I was not doing what I needed to do, and I needed to do this and I needed to do that, and I immediately called HR and said, okay, my boss, the district guy, won't say any names, just called me yelling at me about something that I don't even know anything about. So I needed to call them and find out what am I supposed to do to adjust the work comp portal. And she said, that's not something that you do. I said, well, why am I getting a phone call from the district guy saying I need to update my portal? And she said, that is not your job. I will handle it. Okay, so I let her handle it. From then on, they couldn't talk to me alone. I don't know if they were allowed to talk to other people alone or not. But they couldn't talk to me alone. They had to have another manager, supervisor in there with them, because I'm not going to put up with their shit. I'm not. I'm not here for you to walk on. I'm not here for you to put your footprints all over me. That's not me. Not me. So that issue got taken care of. She did yell at him, but I wrote him up. I wrote up both my boss and his boss, because they were doing something to me that should have never been done. They were trying to make me do something that I wasn't even in control of and wasn't supposed to be doing anyway. It just amazes me that people try so hard to take me down. Either way, I lived through that. I lived through the injury. I had my first surgery before Thanksgiving that year, and that was my shoulder surgery where my bicep got reattached and the 2 tears in my rotator cuff and my labrum all got repaired. I'm still in immense pain. Still can't hardly work my fingers. I said, there's something wrong in my elbow. Definitely something wrong there. So they finally let me have an MRI on that and found out that, well, the doctor said, when I went to the doctor, he said, the report says you have 2 tendons tore loose at your elbow. I said, okay. He said, I don't think that's true, though. So he got to looking, he pulled the MRI up and got to looking at that, and he said, well, I'll be, you do have 2 tendons tore loose at your elbow. And then I had another surgery to repair those in May. And July 4th, I was in a car wreck. Somebody rear-ended me coming out of a fireworks display. And I got up the next morning, my arm was hurting really bad, and it popped really loud, and it hurt really bad. So I told him I needed an appointment to go in and see my doctor. And then he said, well, if anything would have been torn loose again, you wouldn't be able to move your fingers. I said, but I was using my fingers before you reattached them. So how can you tell me that I wouldn't be able to use my fingers now if they came apart again, when I was using them for the past 6 months, pulling price tags off shelves, putting new ones on, using my fingers? Yes, I was. And he said, oh. And I said, you know, I make myself do stuff. And I do. I do, because even being injured, I had standards for myself that I wanted to do my job correctly. It didn't matter that I was injured to me. I still wanted to do and be me. I have to stand in my truth. I have to do what I need to do for me. I don't ask a lot of people for anything. Anyway, I lived through that. I lived through the next surgery. They had me off work for 7 months, 6.5 to 7 months after they reattached the 2 tendons at my elbow. And on the date of the anniversary of the accident, the first anniversary, they released me from all my doctors. Yeah, they didn't plan on doing anything else to me. They didn't want to look at nothing else. They didn't want to pay any more bills. So I hired a lawyer and fought him. My first lawyer didn't accomplish much for me. He tried to get me to settle for that $2,000. Repeatedly, he tried to get me to take $2,000 after I already had 2 surgeries. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. They haven't looked at everything. They won't let me see a doctor. And I'm not fixed. To this day, I am still not fixed. They did let me see a doctor the day they fired me. They called and made me an appointment to see the doctor again. How sweet. You know, now that I'm unemployed, you can send me to the fucking doctor. Now that I no longer work for them. But resigning was always going to be a part of their settlement, and I didn't want to resign. I didn't want to leave that job. I loved that job, and I wanted to keep it. So I wasn't only fighting for medical treatment, I was fighting to keep my job. Well, then the boss I had got fired when I went on vacation. Well, it was a wild vacation. I didn't go anywhere or do anything. I just sat at home. But the Friday of my vacation, the boss got fired that morning. That night, a car hit my apartment wall and put a crack all the way down the wall of my apartment wall in the living room where I was sitting when that car hit my apartment. But luckily I was sitting in a different chair that wasn't on that wall, because the chair that got pushed out from the wall got pushed out like 4 feet. It wasn't a little bitty hit. My complete wall was split all the way down to from floor to ceiling. And then I had to argue with the apartment people about moving me to a different apartment. And that was like on the 13th of January, so, and on a Friday too. So Friday the 13th. On January 30th, they still hadn't come and offered to move me. They hadn't called me to tell me anything about moving me out of my apartment. Nothing. I had heard nothing. So then I went to the office. I said, well, if y'all don't have any place to move me to, then you need to release me from my lease so I can move someplace else. And she did that. I have it recorded. I have it printed out. A release from my lease. And then they tried to charge me the full month's rent for February after they released me from my lease. And I said, no, I've got to have money to pay somebody else for a place to stay. And I'm not paying for here and there, especially when this apartment is unlivable. I've had to go through an ice storm here since the wall got split. And you all didn't give a fuck. You gave me some plastic to cover up the gap. Didn't stop the cold air from coming in. Didn't stop the rain from coming in. It was just really, really amazing, the lengths that they went to not do anything for me. I did find me another place to move to. I was out of there as soon as I could get out and get all my stuff moved. And that's where I'm in that apartment today, where I moved to. And then I went back to work. I went back to work on Monday after that. They had fired my boss, and I applied for that position because I'm qualified. I have a bachelor's degree in management and marketing. I have been working at the place for going on 2 years at that time, so I knew everything about the job. But they like to hire people in that don't know anything. So one of my bosses was from the Army, and he knew nothing about merchandising, but he was a good manager. So we taught him how to merchandise. You know how bad it is that you've got to teach your bosses how to do your job, how to do their job? I mean, it's unfathomable, right? That you have to keep teaching your new boss. Because at this point, I was working on my 4th boss in less than 2 years. That's how bad the turnover was at this job. It didn't pay enough. It was ending COVID. Um, there were a lot of factors at play. But I'm going to stop there for today. And I'm probably going to go back to that morals thing about me telling. Now, see, I talked to one of the managers at the place whenever that issue had come up with the electronic item that went to 2 cents. And the manager said, but if a customer finds it, we can sell it. No, we can't. We can't find it if a customer sells it. We can't sell it if a customer finds it. We can't sell it if you find it. We can't sell it. Period. It doesn't matter who finds that price. 2 cents means you have to throw that item away. Period. And I was talking to that person about my morals and my standards. And they said, you're a good worker. You do what you're supposed to do. I said, because I hold myself accountable. You don't have to. You don't have to hold me accountable for what I do. Because whatever I do, I'm going to do it correctly the first time so I don't have to go redo it. Just the best way to operate. They had a problem in there that district's coming, we got to hurry up and clean the store up because district's coming. If you would keep it clean instead of letting it get tore back down every time between visits, you wouldn't have to hurry up to do something. But that's still in my morals and standards. I'm going to clean up behind myself because I don't expect somebody else to come and clean up behind me. This is my mess, and I'm going to clean it up myself. And that's just part of my morals and my standards, my values, my system that I operate from within me. I don't try to force all this onto other people. That's not theirs. This is my value system. This is what I expect from me. And my motto was always, do the right thing even when no one's looking. Because if you do the right thing even when no one is looking, then when they're looking, you're definitely doing the right thing. That's how I operate. That's how I do things. I hold myself accountable. And more people should be like that. There was a day and time that your word was your bond. Now people just lie to you constantly. They gaslight you. They blow smoke up your ass. They just do whatever they want to do. And they don't really care. Looking at the time there. I hope I'm over 30 minutes. I'm sorry. I think I'll end it at 35. But I want to tell everybody thank you for viewing my page. I want you to know that I am going to be going into more details on my story and how I figured out that I was an earth angel. Because they made me forget when I was little. So I had no idea. I just knew that my life had been chaos for years. For years I've been living in chaos and lack and thinking I wasn't good enough. But I am. I'm good enough. I am valuable. I am worthy of anything I choose to be. And I am, because I'm willing to do the work to be who I choose to be. I can do anything I set my mind to. And I believe in my heart, in my head, in my body, that I can do anything I set my mind to. Anything. There's no one thing in general. It's just... I'm almost out of time for today. But I'm going to do this again tomorrow. We may be in my plant room again. I may go to the park because I live next to a park. But thank you for visiting my page again. And thank you for just thank you for you being you. Remember, you are good enough. You are worthy. You are able to be whatever you choose to be. You can make yourself whatever you want to be, and don't let nobody tell you otherwise. Ever. Thank you.